This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
Let's talk a little Tua from yesterday, right? And let's get into a little bit about what happened yesterday with the CBS broadcast. And I talked about this some yesterday. You can go back to the postgame show and check it out. I don't know where it's at. I think it's like in the latter part of the first hour. Sean probably cut it up. It's probably one of the individual segments, I'm sure. Right, Sean? You cut it up, right? The one yeah, of course he did. He's freaking awesome. And so we talked a little bit about it. And also last night I retweeted a segment from a year ago, in December of last year. You should go listen to that segment. It's there on my Twitter page at Big O Show. It's up on the timeline. It's one of the newer ones. And you need to really listen to that entire segment. For those of you that are new to the platform and you've only been watching for a couple weeks, a couple months, a half a year, you weren't with us last year while I was pretty much telling you that Flo was going to get fired and pretty much telling everybody week to week throughout the season that Flo was raising hell in that building. And he wasn't really getting along with most people in that building. Hell, even Marcel Louis Jacques reported that after Thanksgiving, he wasn't even actually communicating with his coaching staff. But you should listen to that segment. It's there. And yesterday in the CBS broadcast, they talked a little bit about how Tua was very open with them about how he even questioned his confidence, that he was wondering, am I this bad? Do I suck this bad? And that McDaniel had to answer with when McDaniel got there, he kind of felt that, and McDaniel explained it without necessarily trashing Flo, because, Flo really needs to be trashed thoroughly for all of this because he was so irresponsible and terrible in this whole situation. He really could have sabotaged Tua's career and sabotaged the Dolphin fan base, because we have not seen a franchise quarterback since Marino. This guy could have effed up the only chance that they've had in the last 25 years. And we don't know when you're going to get another one. As much as I love this front office, I think it's a great front office. But damn, dude, you're asking them to, oh yeah, go find us another franchise quarterback right away. Really? Okay. That's not an easy thing to do. And so yesterday, Tua talked about the basics, the foundation to every and any relationship in the history of time. Go ahead, Sean. Play Mr. Tua Tagovailoa yesterday in the postgame show.
I thought it was cool. I think anyone here can attest to someone believing in them, and how that changes how they see themselves, but also things around them. So perspective. But it was awesome. There's a lot of details that entail, me sitting down with him and other things as well. But it's awesome. It's really cool.
Was that the first step to?
All right, so today? We got so listen. I've gone over this last year. Not now. This is stuff that people are now talking about and rehashing and all this stuff. I find it hilarious because this is a year later from our show. We were talking about all of this while it was going on. We were telling you about what was going on behind the scenes inside that building. And again, go to that segment. It's there on our Twitter timeline. And folks, this is the ultimate crime in any relationship. I don't care if it's, your pets. I don't care if it's your kids. I don't care if it's your coworkers. I don't care if it's your boss. I don't care whatever it is, coach and player. There has to be something that nurtures that relationship. And that was the problem with Flo. There was no nurturing whatsoever because it was his way or the highway, and he had already given up on him. And by the way, it was a Flo thing to do because he gave up on Josh Rosen right away too. But he was right on that one. But on this one, he was wrong. And this one was a little bit more personal because for him, he wanted Jordan. And when he couldn't get Jordan Love and they wanted Tua, that was it right there. And he basically, didn't give the kid a chance. And that's why I fought for 2 years for this kid, because I could be concerned about his injury history and all that other stuff, but I was never concerned about his game. I knew he could play. But you got to, and you know what? Listen, I'm happy that, in a way, a guy that, made me nervous when they drafted him, obviously because of the injury history, but my ignorance to his injury history, because it was ignorance. Let me explain that. Because while I was convinced he was an injury-prone player in college, which he was, and then he had his injuries here, the injuries here really made me understand what Saban was talking about. And Saban mentioned it to all of us in the pre-draft process that, he has the one thing that he holds on to the ball. And yet we kind of swept it under the rug. And then, here he goes in his career and he has then these other injuries, right? And that's when I went to the lab and we then, okay, well, wait a minute. How long did he hold the ball for the hip injury? How long did he hold the ball for the ankle injuries? How long did he hold the ball for this concussion? Oh, wait a minute. Now he's not injury prone, but he puts himself in an injury situation because he holds on to the goddamn ball. And so even with me, I was nervous about that. But never nervous about him as a player. I knew he can play. I watched him at Alabama. You don't throw like that if you're not special. And he's special. And that's where Flo failed. Flo could not see that the kid was special. And then Flo also failed because he couldn't build an offense around the kid. And possibly could have ruined it. As I tweeted out yesterday, the greatest transaction in Miami Dolphins history was the firing of Brian Flores. That is the greatest transaction. Well, maybe second. Let's go with Shula as always the number one transaction because you traded for that guy and he created a franchise. He made that logo matter. You know what I'm saying? So Shula would have to be the most important transaction. But second most important transaction, well, the most important in the modern day Miami Dolphins will be this one of firing Brian Flores, because that opened the door for somebody who is willing to give people an opportunity, has the patience, and by the way, has the vision, because that's where you've got to give Mike McDaniel a lot of credit and take it all away from Flo. This guy saw what Chris Greer and Marvin Allen and Reggie McKenzie saw. They saw a special player, but you needed the right coaching staff to bring it out of him like any other player. Lots of players can end up on the wrong franchise and the wrong scheme, and they never perform. And by the way, this also makes you admire Tua even more. What an example. What an example. What a leader. What a winner. A guy that could have pointed fingers, could have blamed others. Never did any of that, bro. Never went after never went after Flo. None of that, dude. Kind of now there's little backhanded shots now. But guess what? He's entitled to him. Flo, you treated him like shit. He's entitled to take his shots at you now. And this, I hope Flo is big enough to one day approach Tua and truly apologize and say, "Hey, man, I was wrong." I would admire Flo for that. Actually, he would get back in my good graces, put it that way, if he was man enough to admit that what he did here was absolutely wrong on every level. And his treatment of Tua was disgusting. I think that's where I would admire Flo, that he would say, "Hey, you know what? That was my fault. I was a bad coach here. I had a great player and I didn't understand it. I could not build an offense. I failed the player. I failed the team. I failed the franchise. I now understand what went on. And and clearly you see what is going on in Miami. I did not get it." I would appreciate Flo if he did that. You know why? Because I'm going to do that. You're going to do that. We're all going to screw up. We're all going to read something wrong. We're all going to make mistakes, right? But it's kind of, the idea is to admit when you make the mistake and then try to fix it. And by the way, how could you ever trust Flo again to be a coach if he's not willing to admit when he's wrong? That will show zero accountability with any other franchise out there. Not that he has any shot at ever being a head coach again. He's done. It's over. He never had a shot in the first place, but after watching what's going on here in Miami, oh my God, they're definitely, it will never happen again. The level of incompetence was way too high for you to even take that chance again.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.